Welcome to our Inside Implant Studio webinar part 2. Today again with Thomas and myself, we have clinics. We're going to continue on our presentation about how to run the dual scan protocol with Implant Studio. Last week we looked at the practical side on how to do it and how to prepare everything for taking the data into Implant Studio. Today we're actually going to look at how to do it inside Implant Studio. And Thomas, welcome.
Thank you, everybody, and good morning, good afternoon to everybody out there, depending on where you are in the world. As Birk mentioned, today we're just going to do a 3-minute recap of what we discussed last time. I hope everybody can hear and see us this time around, or else you will let us know.
Okay, Thomas, please continue. So we're going to recap, and then we're going to look at the best practice on how to prepare the dual scan protocol for Implant Studio.
Yeah, exactly. And here we're going to try and cover some different aspects of the software. It's basically just some tips and tricks. We're not going to go through entire cases. We're just going to sample a little bit in what we have seen as tips and tricks coming in for these dual scan edentulous cases in Implant Studio. And a small disclaimer here to begin with is that we are using Implant Studio 2016 in this webinar here. So we will be presenting from Implant Studio 2016 for the first time to a lot of you that haven't seen it. So if you feel that things look different than what you're used to, then some of it could be because of 16, and we will get back to you on when this is available at the end of the webinar.
So good. So what did we learn last week? Of course, we're going to look at a protocol which is only going to use CT scan data. There is no use of an intraoral scan by TRIAS or by taking an impression which then later is being scanned by a dental lab scanner. It's pure DICOM data sets, and we have to load it into the software. But before that, let's use a quote made by Zach Dalmau, a project manager with a lot of experience on the dual scan protocol, that preparation is everything.
Yeah, so basically what he stated in a conversation we had with him is that the secret to this dual scan protocol and having a successful software experience with it is basically good preparation of the material you have available. So that means what we went over the last time in the last webinar, preparing the denture with a good fit, good distribution of markers in the right material with a good bite index. That all yields a high likelihood of a good quality scan of the denture or the appliance. And then afterwards we also looked into some details on actually scanning the appliance and the patient and why it's important to consider certain aspects there. So that's kind of what we covered in the previous episode. Today we're going to focus a lot more on software and how we deal with the different things in Implant Studio.
So we now have 2 data sets available as a DICOM scan. They are of the required quality. We can see the markers of the denture scan, but also the patient can clear. And now it's time to get to move to Implant Studio and to get started by defining the order form.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I just changed to software here. So that's what the first thing we need to know about Implant Studio is how to actually set up such an edentulous case or dual CT scan case in the software. So this may seem pretty basic, but there's a lot of users out there where this is actually a new functionality and it's a new workflow. So that's why we're starting from this point. So on the details page, I can go in and see the 3D order form. I can select the tooth and I can go to my implant planning tab. And here I'll now see that I have an edentulous tab that I can click. And if I click both, or if I click guide, then I will make both planning and guide on all teeth. And then we see that all teeth are selected here. So basically now my case is set up and I can see that the workflow up top is ready for me to continue. Just one simple trick here, guys, is that you can mark one tooth or you can mark all teeth and select planning and guide, and you will essentially obtain the same result here. You will be able to place implants everywhere when you get into the workflow. So that's kind of the tip here, that as soon as you enable edentulous or select the edentulous guide and planning, then you'll be able to place implants everywhere.
Yeah, it's kind of a free mode. In comparison to the tooth supported, where for each individual tooth you should mark where you want to place an implant.
Exactly.
So perfect. So the order is prepared. The next step is to load in the data sets.
Yeah, so I always just use the next buttons that we have up here so I click next, and then you'll see I'm being forwarded to the scan import page. The software is asking me to import 2 CT scans. So an upper denture scan, I'll click the button, and then I will simply just browse to the location where I have my scans. And in this case, if I ever get in doubt, I'll look up top, say it's a denture scan that I'm loading here, and I'll select any file, and I'll wait for the scan to load.
Good. So data set number 1, we have now the denture.
Quickly verify the denture scan. We have correctly loaded a denture scan for an upper denture, so this looks good from this point. I'll do the same for the patient CT scan. So like this. And again, I see my result immediately. So that's how we actually load in scans for a dual CT scan protocol. It's how we set up the order form.
Excellent. So now the next step will be to move on and to find the optimal threshold settings for the denture or the appliances. So please remember last week we already talked about it, how important this step is in order to define the right dimension of the denture and to have the correct or to allow a good or optimal fit of the surgical guide later on the gingiva. So let's move to the software and start using the tools we have available.
Exactly. So here again, I'll click next and I'll move into the software step. What you will see here is actually that we will arrive at a different step in the software. So right now we arrive in the actual workflow at the cropping step. But if I go one step back, I have a preparation step, which is exactly this denture segmentation step. And already here we get a lot of value given by the software. So we already see now that this workflow is a highly automatic workflow in Implant Studio, where we get a lot of computational help, so to say, from the computer. But in this step here, I see that I have some holes in a denture, and I have a threshold slider. So with the threshold slider, I can try and adjust the threshold for where I want my segmentation of this denture to end, and then I can try and see if I can close these holes up or make the denture more smooth. Whenever it's calculating, you'll see information down here that it's calculating, and it's quite obvious that when it's calculating, the denture or the appliance does not look very nice. If I want to evaluate, I can right click and then add a cross section like this, and then I can try and go in and check the actual segmentation of the denture. So what we see here is now the outline with the current threshold. We see that on top of the gray value image, and then I can go in and make measurements and see, okay, how big a difference do I believe there is. If I'm still not happy, then again I'll go in and change it, and I need to let it calculate. So that's kind of the option that we have. We have an automatic button that will always pinpoint to the computational optimized threshold, and that's kind of always our starting point if we do not change it.
Yeah. So now we learned, okay, we can work with this threshold to find the optimal trade-off between having a good looking denture presented on the screen, but also finding the right boundary between what is denture and what will be later on the gingiva of the patient. So the next step is now some practical things about cropping the CT scan. Of course, this has the benefit of reducing the load on the memory for the graphic card, but it's also practical to just look at the part of the CT scan of the patient which is relevant for our case. So let's do that.
Exactly. So I just quickly changed to a different case here. So again, we will see that when we arrive at the workflow step, we will arrive at the cropping step. The cropping step works exactly the same way as we used to. So we have these spheres that we can drag and drop so we can change the cropping region. The interesting thing and the important thing here is that we now have a denture scan that we can go in and crop, and we have the patient scan. So we actually have two sub-steps in the cropping step. And as Birk mentioned, we're now working with two quite heavy data sets, both coming from the CT scanner, and that's why it actually increases the value of this cropping step and the importance of the cropping step.
So once you're equipped with a powerful laptop, it should be not an issue at all to run smooth the software. If you as a user might have a lower performance laptop in terms of graphic card, cropping is an essential way to make sure you still have a good user experience. So let's move on to the next steps then. So we have done the cropping, then we're going to continue with the alignment. Here we have a great feature you're going to present to us. It's about the automated detection of the radiopeg markers. Last week we learned that bowl-shaped markers are working very nicely in the practical world. So let's take a look.
Yeah, so as Birk mentioned here, the cool thing about this workflow step here is really that what we see on screen here is what the software gives us automatically. So this is an automatic step where it goes in and actually looks for these markers and defines them, the ones that it can find without any input from me or from the operator of the system. Right. So and we do see that for some cases that it misses a marker on one of the two scans, or that it has one too many or two too many, then you can go in just by clicking any marker. You can turn it off and on like it's a toggle button. So, and then you simply take out the marker from the actual alignment. So I can do that on both scans, as you can see, but in this case I'm quite happy with the fact that it found all of them. So I'm just gonna quickly click next, and then I can confirm my alignment and move on.
Yeah. Once again, we can also use this cross section to double check if the alignment of the denture to the CT scan is being made correct. We also have this deviation information available. So there are different ways to double check if the alignment proposed by the software is the optimal, or the user might want to personally interact or using manual alignment to find a setup which works from his point of view best. So perfect, alignment done. So the next step is, let's go straight into the actual use of the implant planning tool. Here are a few things which will come in the 2016 version which you'd like to share with us, Thomas.
Yeah, there's some good improvements, minor improvements, and we'll get back to some of it in a later webinar. But obviously now we're talking about these large full arch cases, edentulous, partial edentulous patients where we're replacing RPDs and similar restorations of patients. So one thing that's going to be crucial in these cases is anchor pins. And as you see here, we have already placed 4 implants in something that could resemble an all-on-4 case, and we've placed 2 anchor pins. What we really want to stress here is that we treat anchor pins just like we treat implants, meaning you find and place them the same as you would place an implant in our software. So by clicking the tooth selector where I want to place an anchor pin, I can open up my anchor pins or my implant selector. In this case, I will navigate to an anchor pin of my choice, and I'll select it. And then I can close down my selector and then basically place the anchor pin where I want it to be placed. So you saw me finding the anchor pin among all the different other available implants from BioHorizons in this case, which was just a random pick. So that's basically how we treat it. Similar to implants, you place them similarly, you can work with them similar as implants. That's the important thing. So that's where you will find them. There's a small thing that some of the more experienced users will notice here, and that is this little yellow star, and that's one of the 2016 small improvements to come. is that we can now, you can see it here, star any implant line within any manufacturer, and what this star actually does is that it puts it under my favorites, so I have easy access to my favorite implants. So for labs and planning facilities and similar users, you have easy access to the most used systems in your software.
So we have a way for quick access of the preferred choice of implant or anchor pin system. Very nice. Of course, we're not going to reveal all of the new things to come because we still want to run a What's New webinar in 2 weeks' time, where you're going to dive deeper into the new features. For now, we have now placed the anchor pins. The implant placement and planning is as before. There's nothing really new. Before we're going to move on to the guide design, maybe one of the features which sometimes get lost by users is the ability to make reports and screenshots. Maybe Thomas, you can quickly show it to us before we're going to move on to the last step, the guide design.
Yeah, that's a very good point actually. It's a function that we see used by some users, and when they use it, it's most often in this planning step actually, where you want to point out something in detail or an anatomical structure or whatever in your planning. The way it works is that you can actually see that we have these snapshot bars in all the cross-sectional views. So here I can go in and say I want to take a snapshot. I then open up, I then generate a snapshot of this particular view. I can then add a general comment, and I can add specific arrow comments by placing an arrow saying is this too deep? And by pressing add comment, you will see over here we have now a comments pane opening. So now I can browse it, I can make it come in, I can make it go out, and whenever I export or send this case, I will send all my comments to it as well. I will even add my comments to our surgical reports actually when we output that.
So the idea is that actually it's first for documentation, but also to have a tool on your hand for an interactive communication with your fellow co-workers, both on the clinical but also on the lab side. It can be used in the different steps, so it's a very flexible tool. So let's move on to the last step, the guide design. So we have now done the implant planning, and we have placed anchor pins to hold the guide in a tight position during surgery. So what kind of option do we have in terms of guide design? Thomas, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. The cool thing here is again that this workflow it's a highly automatic workflow. So we don't really need to do a whole lot to actually get from our planning to our guide. We just need to calculate the guide. And when we get to this point, then we basically have 3 different guide types to choose from. We have this one-piece guide, which is kind of the default selection, where we just see that the anchor pins and implants will go in using the same guide. Then we can enable this 2-piece guide, which is something we introduced with Implant Studio 2015, where you can go in and split the existing guide into 2 pieces, so we get an alignment piece and an actual piece used for surgery. Obviously, the idea here is that you will place the anchor pins while the guide is connected to each other, the 2 pieces. Then when the guide is secured in the patient's mouth, then you will lift the top part off, and then you'll have a lot of space and the surgeon will be free to maneuver with his tools around the different implant sites that he needs to prepare. Then for the new release of Implant Studio 2016, we've kind of extended a little bit on this concept and made an option where you can now output these 2 pieces. These 2 pieces are the same, or the bottom piece are actually the same. It's only the top piece that is different, which is now a full kind of part, but only containing the anchor pins. So here the idea is that you will place the anchor pins using the top part guide here. And then when you have the correct drill depth and everything for the anchor pins, then you will take the top part out of the patient's mouth, and then you will fixate the bottom part instead with the anchor pins in place, and then you'll start preparing your implant sites. So that's the idea of these different guide types that you can kind of make a selection and fit to your to every case and to the needs of the surgeon or the dentist involved.
So following the general 3Shape philosophy to provide highest flexibility to the end user in using our products, once again we also prove this by enabling different type of guide designs within Implant Studio. There's more to come in the 2016 version, including the ability to export the gingiva with the implant position for further use in dental systems, the dental lab. We're going to talk about this more in 2 weeks' time. I think that's it for now, for today, on the actual demonstration. Maybe it's a good chance to take a look and practical questions asked by users, participants. So Thomas, actually before moving there, a very important step is about how we're going to actually, what kind of output data we have available.
Yeah, and again, it's often a question we hear from users. So now we're no longer working with surface scans, we're working with CT scans only. What are we actually outputting? And obviously people expect to see a guide outputted. So let me see if I can quickly navigate to my Implant Studio output folder. I have it here, and this is basically the files outputted from a dual CT scan case. So we see that we, depending on your guide selection, of course, but in this case a two-piece guide was selected, so that's why we see a surgical guide, we see an additional surgical guide file. So these are the two STL files of the surgical guide. That's what we would expect outputted. We have the drilling protocol and the surgical protocols, again, very similar to what we normally do. But then we actually also have two DCM files, 3Shape surface scans that we output, and that's calculated based on the CT scans. And both of these scans contains information from the denture with implant information, with the planned implant information in there. And we're gonna come back to that in detail at a later stage. But it's important to know that you can actually, with the dual CT scan protocol now, you can actually generate a surface scan output with the planned implant information in there.
Yeah. So it's all along also our story about guided prosthetic. It's more than a surgical guide software we are offering to the market. It's about enabling guided prosthetics from the start till the end, all planned through. So all of this, what you just learned during the last two webinars, is also summarized in our how to run the dual scan protocol document, which we will send once again after the webinar to you, plus a recording.
It's also uploaded to the hands-out session of this webinar, so you should be able to download it.
Yes, please also be aware we have training videos on the dentist workflow available on YouTube. If you search for 3Shape Implant Studio Edentulous, you should find them. There are 5 of them. They are also going to dive even deeper into how to use the different tools available within the software. It's based on the 2015 version, so some of the things you saw today are not available, but even better, with the 16 you can do more. So I think we have covered all of it so far. Let's take a quick look on questions which people might have asked to us. If you open the tab, please, Thomas. So let's see. It's sorry for we need a second. The tool is not very user friendly. Yeah, maybe you can comment on this, Thomas.
There's a question coming in if we're able to make bone supported guides yet in Implant Studio 2016. The answer is that the workflow that we just demonstrated here is for gingiva supported guides. We are looking into the requirement of a bone supported guide workflow as well. And it's something that is still to come, and it's not included in Implant Studio 2016.
Yeah.
Then there's some questions about the next webinars that is going to run. Actually, a good point. The invitations are going to go out after this webinar, later today, early tomorrow. There's also in the chat in this webinar here, you will be able to find a link where you can go to 3shape.com and then into our webinar portal, and then you can see the webinars coming up. So there you will be able to find the sign-up links for Implant Studio What's New 2016 webinar, which will be held on the 17th of May. We've scheduled some different times to try and accommodate some different time zones.
Yes, there will be one in the morning, European time or Central European time. So there will be one around midday, actually in German, as not for our German-based customers. And we have another one in the late afternoon, particular for the customers in the Americas. So there's more to come. First on, we're going to hold some specialized webinars for resellers on how to support it the same week from May 16th. And we're also going to have some new webinars coming out in June, in particular looking at workflows across Implant Studio to lab system and trias. So please stay curious and watch out for new invitation to sign up to new webinars. This is just a start. The recording will follow later today or tomorrow for part 2 of our how to run the dual scan protocol. And that's it from our side. We wish you a pleasant day and hope to see you or talk to you soon again.
Yeah, we're signing out, guys. Thank you. Bye.